Welcome back to another episode of Can You Survive This podcast. My guest today is named Austin Mao. Welcome to the podcast, Austin.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thanks for
Really
coming
excited to be
on.
here.
So, you are the founder or co-founder of an entheogenic church. Tell us about that and tell us, what does that mean? What is an entheogenic church?
So we're a nonprofit and legal psychedelic church based near Denver, Colorado. And what it means is that we serve a sacrament of psilocybin or ayahuasca, much like the Catholic Church would serve wine, right? And this sacrament is what we consider an accelerant that allows us a greater ease and access for a connection with the divine. And within our church, the divine means the connection with the divinity within ourselves and the divinity in all things.
Gotcha. And sorry, did you say what sacraments?
Psilocybin mushrooms and ayahuasca.
Got you. Got you. And how did you get into that world? How did you come to be the founder of an entheogenic church?
That's quite the story. So years ago, I was invited to an ayahuasca ceremony or ayahuasca retreat for founders by a dear friend of mine named Keith Ferrazzi. Um, and when he gave me the invitation, he just said, "You should come to this. You'd be great at it." By that time, I had already used psychedelics more than 100 times recreationally. And so I went in with a chip on my shoulder, right? I was a multi-time founder, living a 4-hour work week, traveling the world, making high six-figure income. And so in many respects, um, people would look at my life that I would post on social media and humble brag on Facebook and say, wow, this guy is living a great life. But
Mhm.
at that moment, I wasn't able to admit it to myself, but I felt meaningless and directionless inside. So when I went to this retreat, I went in with a chip on my shoulder, you know? Here I am, this successful guy who's done lots of psychedelics. What could ceremony teach me? Um, and when I first went under the psychedelic experience, my first out of 3 ceremonies there, I was able to feel my mother's embrace in a way that I felt so nurtured and warm and safe that I don't remember having felt before. And then I was able to have a conversation with my father who had passed 4 years prior and introduced to him my wife, who he had never had a chance to meet. And I felt a level of catharsis. You know, I thought that I had gone through the grieving process of him, but I wasn't aware that I had still yet to grieve that which I could no longer ever do with him, right?
Wow.
And that was just such an opening for me. After that night, I was like, hallelujah, I'm healed. I can go home. Why do I even need 2 more ceremonies? But in the second ceremony, I had asked the shaman at the time who served us the sacrament, hey, I can barely remember my childhood, right? What's up with this? And she said, well, tonight you ask the medicine. When I went into the psychedelic experience, I was started reliving my memories in vivid detail. I felt like I could turn my locker combination in high school, read passages from books that I had read. And I was going back and back and back in time until I was a child under sheets. And then, kind of trigger warning, I realized that I was touched as a 4-year-old back then.
Oh my God.
And that's exactly what I said. I came out of the experience and I said, oh my God. And when I went back in, I started reliving my life fast forward and seeing how I was a bully as a kid. I had sexual confusion as a teenager. I didn't know how to hold relationships as an adult. And and all of that kind of made sense because not only did I have that original trauma, but I also had this propensity of my brain to repress memories. And so I couldn't retain lovely memories, including deep memories of loving my mother and of loving my wife and loving my ex-girlfriends, who we were with a long time. That moment heralded the renaissance of my life. I started writing again. I doubled my company's revenue in 6 months. I started picking up music. And over the course of the next few years, devoting more and more of my life to plant medicine, to these plant sacraments.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's beautiful, man. Thank you for sharing that. What year was that that you had that initial experience?
That was in 2020. I remember vividly because the stock market crashed when I was in the retreat.
Oh, wow.
And then a
You
little
you
tidbit, and most people don't know, I was in China in December 2019 when COVID started there. And so, yeah, it was a lot of synchronicities happening.
so you said it was a founders retreat in Mexico. What kind of line of work were you in? You said you mentioned you were a founder of businesses?
So I had previously been a finance, my first company was in finance and then tech. And then ultimately, when I went to that retreat, I had the largest Airbnb operation in Las Vegas. And so you could
Oh,
just imagine like the misalignment with how I made money and what my spiritual path was calling me towards, you know?
wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
you had this very expansive, transformative experience in Mexico at the Founders Retreat in 2020. And then, sort of, what are the next steps? When did you end up founding your church, which is called Ceremonia, correct?
Yes. Ceremonia. Founded Ceremonia in 2022. And really, it was a response to how I kept going back to the medicine, right? Kept going back to the psychedelic experience as my only like tool, my only source of understanding of how to um, arrive at a greater sense of embodiment and state. In other words, I wasn't integrating what I had learned from those profound experiences. I wasn't integrating it back into my 3D life. And so I would take a trip to the cosmos and see the truth of the universe and who I am, but then I wasn't bringing that back into creating meaningful change in my relationships and my work and how I hold myself. I shouldn't say I didn't at all, but I didn't do enough. And
Okay.
this work is an accelerant, right? So you don't have to do psychedelics, right? You can go through many, many years of therapy, many, many years of meditation, arrive at the same revelations. Psychedelics is a rapid acceleration towards a deeper sense of self and a deeper connection with the universe, with other people, right?
Got you.
So when I had that accelerated course, I didn't integrate even a fraction of what was possible. And that created a lot of suffering in my life. My marriage was, um, on the outside seemed great, but on the inside, we were having struggles. The way that I handled my business and the way I interacted with the people in my business, I wasn't holding in the highest integrity. I wasn't grounded. I was still traveling so much and not dedicating my life to something. And that's when I started really picking up more and more tools. I often get asked like, why, how does being an entrepreneur, like, what's that path to becoming a facilitator? And I just gave a talk at an event here yesterday called the Conscious Entrepreneur Summit. And I shared that a hallmark of entrepreneurs is that we surround ourselves with experts, right? We admit that we cannot do it all. And we become good at like learning how to do something that we don't know how to do initially, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And so that's what I did. I surrounded myself with the top people in the field, really dived into the top learnings, and then ultimately created this integrated model of what would become Ceremonia, the integration of psychology and spirituality, of science and shamanism.
Interesting. What kind of you mentioned working with top people in the field. Can you talk about like what kind of people that was?
Yeah, sure. So first I'll say um, the way that I recommend choosing a facilitator is the same path that I took towards my path of growth, right? And that would be I would meet somebody with an embodiment of peace or joy or playfulness or ease. And I would say, I want what you have. How did you get to become that way? and they would say, oh, okay, you should go to this training or do this retreat or something like that. And I started just going to each one, right, that I could get my hands on. And so as I started doing that, I started developing relationships with other facilitators of these various modalities, right?
Mhm, mhm.
So without going to specifics of names, like
Sure.
there are there's this world of consciousness is so vast and varied, right? I like to think of it mind, body, spirit. Mind is psychotherapy. In the field of psychotherapy alone, I mean, how many thousands, tens of thousands of world-renowned experts are there? And some of the top psychologists in the world have been our facilitators here.
Oh,
The
really?
world of spirituality. Yeah, the
Cool.
world of spirituality. There's so many different forms of having a spiritual experience, and the body, like you know, the body has so many different ways: somatic experiencing, movement, yoga, tantra, et cetera, et cetera. So, just like I was hungry for how to grow, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Kind of like a path of personal development,
Yeah,
which kind of,
exactly.
I guess, seems like it led to a path of spiritual development as well.
Yeah.
Did you you mentioned that you kept going back to the medicine and working with all sorts of different like spiritual teachers and therapists and trying to work on personal development. I'm curious when in your process of going back to the medicine a lot, did you work at all with any indigenous people?
Absolutely. Yeah. So my teachers themselves are of a Peruvian lineage, and another teacher is a Grammy-nominated singer um, who is Venezuelan himself, but has learned from many different indigenous tribes and whatnot.
Amazing, amazing. So you're kind of working in some version of like a maybe some traditional lineages worked into your practice.
Yes. However, it's important for me to share what we care about is inspiration, not appropriation, right?
Mhm,
I'm
mhm.
I'm Chinese, and we get something that I seek to do in my personal practice and integrate into Ceremonia is to take complex ideas and really look for what is the core energy, the key message underneath all of it, right? And so the complexity of holding a psychedelic therapy session or a psychedelic ceremony, I mean, that is wildly complex. People can go study many years in the jungle, have many psychedelic experiences to facilitate, to even begin facilitating these sort of things, right?
Mhm.
And so, um, what what I've done is really boil down um, many of the rituals that we've experienced and I've learned from, and then offered from a place of inspiration our own spin. I facilitate with my wife, and she's Chinese too, and so we bring the Tao Te Ching, the Tao, into our
Oh, cool.
integration circles. We
Beautiful.
share integration over a Chinese tea ceremony, and in ceremony, we sing different languages, and she sings Chinese. And
Cool.
most people have never heard Chinese in a psychedelic ceremony.
That's really interesting. I like how you integrate like your own personal stuff into it as well. And I really liked what you said, inspiration, not appropriation. That's really cool. I wonder if there's maybe some way that one day the church would be in a position to give back to indigenous tribes in some way. That'd be really beautiful as well.
Yes, absolutely. And so we give back insofar as supporting indigenous leaders coming to our church and serving as ministers. So
Oh,
we've
cool.
had the Hunikun tribe and um, other tribes scheduled, right?
Amazing.
Um, but we're truly a nonprofit, and if we were fully accurate, I would say that we're a not making money nonprofit. So uh, when we get to the place of being able to give back and not relying purely on donations ourselves, then of course we're going to do that.
Amazing. I love that. That's great to hear. So it sounds like you were kind of like a successful entrepreneur. You had this huge Airbnb thing. You started doing the medicine and kind of expanding your personal development, and one thing leads to another. And did you kind of get out of your Airbnb business and just go all in on founding a church? Or can you talk a little bit about that transition?
Yes, I really began that transition when founding Ceremonia. So started, selling the portfolio of real estate in Las Vegas.
Mhm.
And really it wasn't from a so much an economic decision as it was a energetic decision, you know. We specialized in large houses. And so you could just imagine the kind of people that would book 16 people in Las Vegas, you know. So and the kind of stories that I had.
Oh
And
yeah.
there was this like profound like spiritual challenge of in the same day, holding space for people as they're going through revisiting core memories and finding their own spirituality. Meanwhile, I'm taking a phone call of an unexpected party and I don't know, the police showing up in Las Vegas and neighbors being pissed off, And
Mhm.
there were just multiple signs um, that that showed me no matter what, I needed to just get out of the former and really
Mhm.
lean into where I'm at now.
So you're in Denver, correct?
Hmm.
What is the like legality around all this? And is there any I thought most of this was illegal. And can you talk a little bit about like the legality and maybe has there been a lot of research done by, I don't know, the government or et cetera? How does that all work?
Yeah, so there are two states in the United States so far that have legalized. That's Oregon and Colorado. Oregon has legalized sort of medical centers for psilocybin and started implementing that last year. Implementation is happening this year for Colorado. And so we are operating both at the state level and at the federal level legal, which is really nice because Colorado is the center of the United States. It's very easy for people to get here from both coasts. You also asked about research. So
Yeah.
here's the interesting thing. There's quite a bit of medical research right now, right? Scientific research that's being published by Johns Hopkins University, Imperial College of London, um, Harvard, et cetera, right? That are coming out around the efficacy of psychedelics. Um, the FDA has called this a breakthrough therapy and has fast-tracked the use of psychedelic-assisted therapy, towards through their process. And we may see legalization of MDMA, the first psychedelic drug, to go through the FDA process as early as August 11th. Okay,
Oh, wow.
so there's a ton of research right now, and really, what the research shows is that for PTSD, for treatment-resistant depression, not only is psychedelics paired with therapy more the most effective um, treatment regime that's ever been known, it is orders of magnitude more effective than the next effective psychiatric treatment.
Beautiful.
It's also one of the safest drugs on the planet. I mean, for psilocybin, you're consuming a mushroom, right? And I don't know about you, but I love having mushroom pizza or like,
Yeah.
other sorts
Yeah.
of mushrooms, right? And so this is a natural organic um, uh, plant, or sorry, natural organic compound that is extraordinarily safe for the body to process. There are very few contraindications, and it seems like the research is showing that it's not only good for people that suffer from an ailment, right? A psychiatric ailment, but it's also really good for performance enhancement. For
Hmm.
example, I've worked with many founders. Many founders come because they're looking for a new level of inspiration in their lives, and they typically find it, right?
Wow.
And so there's this broad spectrum of use case at the psychiatric level. There's also, um, you know, there's not as much research on there. There's research coming out on the benefits at a physical level, right? But I'll just speak
Really?
to some of my own experience with it.
Cool.
Um, my mother came to a retreat
Hmm.
a year ago, and that was a very profound, even just having her say yes.
At, may I ask, at what age is your mother when she came to a ceremony?
Uh, 69 years old. Yeah,
69. So there's no age
yeah.
restrictions here.
Our oldest participant has been 78, and our youngest so far has been 23. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And what's kind of cool is the 23-year-old, I think, was in the same retreat as the 78-year-old. And it
Wow.
was profound to have that kind of span, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So my mom has struggled with many different tumors that, in her body, um, and had a lot of fear of some of these being cancerous, and we were waiting on test results, right? Within a month after the retreat, she did new scans, and the majority of her tumors were gone, just disappeared. And the doctors were shocked at that.
Yeah.
I give that example because it's very personal to me, but we've now had 170 alumni come through Ceremonia. There are over a dozen that have come with something, right? We had a participant that wasn't able to urinate without pain for more than 20 years because of
Oh my God.
a significant like health issue before, right? And through the course of the three ceremonies, the first two were really challenging for her, but the third one was so vibrant and opened her up. And since that time, which was almost a year ago to the day, she has not only not had pain, but she's been physically thriving. She, in fact, did a trip herself to the jungles of, I think, of the Amazonian jungles and continued to explore plant
Hmm.
medicine. Yeah.
That's amazing. How do they, I guess there's no way, how does that work? How does a physical healing happen? I guess we don't really know that yet, or is there any research on that?
Oh, there's a ton of research on this
On physical
because
healing?
because the research is not it's not specific to psychedelics. The research basically says that the suffering that we experience in the mind gets lodged in our bodies, right? There's a psychosomatic connection, right?
Mhm.
And so when we suppress, when we repress unmet emotions, then and we stick that down inside of us, then it creates stress in the body, which then creates sickness, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
And so
I have heard this. Yeah.
yeah, there's a great book called Body Keeps the Score that was a seminal work that um, had a lot of research that illustrated this by Bessel van der Kolk. And subsequently, modern psychotherapy has this as a given now that when you um, when you are feeling something, there is a correlated sensation in the body. Do you want
Hmm.
to try something out with me right now that can
Okay.
demonstrate this? Okay,
Okay.
right.
Cool. Let's do
So
it.
first just try this out. Just give yourself a little pinch
Okay.
somewhere. Okay. Do you have a judgment about this? Is this good or bad?
I have no judgment about it.
No judgment about, right?
Yeah.
But now imagine if someone surprise pinched you in that same place, or someone you didn't like pinched you in that same place, right? Do you think
Hmm.
you would have a different judgment about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the same nerves, the same sensory experience is happening, right? It's still whatever it feels like to be pinched on your skin, and yet somehow the latter creates an emotion, right? And that emotion is probably not something that's pleasurable, right? On the spectrum of pain to pleasure, it's like something that you don't want, right?
Hmm.
Which is what we call resistance. It's not pain that creates suffering, it's our relationship to the pain, right? If you're walking around, you stub your toe, and you're like, oh, that just happened, and you move on, there's no suffering there. But if you're like, damn it, I did it again, I always do this, blah, 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 then you are creating this amount of suffering in your system, aka non-peace.
Hmm.
So now try putting your hand on your chest, right? And push
Okay.
down on on that, right?
Okay.
Feeling like a weight on your chest, right?
Yep. Yep.
Most people, when they share that they feel grief, they express that it feels like a weight on their chest. Can you
Mm.
resonate with that? It
Yeah.
resonates for me, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with that. Yeah.
Now, the sensory experience of you putting your hand on your chest and pushing in is very similar to the feeling of the weight on the chest that someone would feel in grief. And yet with grief, it's something we really don't want to feel, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So the trick to allowing an emotion is to be with the sensory experience while removing the labels, the image, the judgments that we have in our mind, to acknowledge those exist, right? To say, oh, hi judgments, hi resistance. I smile at you. I meet you with curiosity and with compassion, but then to move deeper into the inner sensation and allow it space. Does
I
that
love
make
that.
sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Meeting it with curiosity and compassion. I like that.
Yeah.
That's
Hmm.
beautiful. So are you guys at Ceremonia, are you working with like are you just facilitating and serving plant medicine and playing music, or is there more to the protocol with therapists and, you know, integration and pre-preparation? Are is there all sorts of stuff for that? Or can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. There's so much more. In fact, what we share is so much beyond the psychedelic experience. Um, we we believe that integration begins with preparation. And so in advance of the retreat, first you get paired with an alumnus that maybe shares a profile similar to you. Let's say you come with your husband or wife, you might get paired with another couple, you know, you with the husband, your partner with the wife, let's say, right? And start to have a conversation sharing the pre and post impact from the alumnus. So they can share like the anxiety they came in with and then what they experienced and what they went home to and the challenges there. We have an AI enhanced course that you take online. So
Cool.
what that means is you start interacting with the AI chatbot, which embodies like embodies being Tony Robbins or embodies being a leading psychologist and you supports you in developing routine and habits and levels of self-inquiry in advance of the retreat. Okay.
Hmm.
And we have you read a book for our level one with psilocybin. It's called Letting Go by David Hawkins. And for the
Okay.
readers out there, I highly, highly recommend this book. It is not only the Bible for our church, it is um, often our alumni share that the book was life-changing in itself.
Hmm.
And
Okay.
so people start reading, going through this practice, and then we do Zoom calls where everyone meets each other, and we do experiential workshops on the Zoom calls. Okay. By the time people arrive to the retreat, they're already familiar with each other and familiar with the tools that we're going to facilitate. And then we do workshops. We do workshops from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. and then do ceremony at night. Okay.
Hmm. Okay.
And these workshops follow three pillars. The first is mindfulness. We can only change what we're aware of. And so we do practical meditation tools to develop our own awareness of ourself, right? The first one is a Buddhist practice called noting, where you're just saying, I'm thinking, I'm feeling, I'm sensing. Like at any given moment, you're doing one of those three things, right? I'm thinking, there are thoughts that I'm hearing in my mind. I'm feeling an emotion in my body. Or I'm sensing, I'm using one of my five senses. I'm hearing something, I'm seeing something, etc. Right? And just the very nature of starting to develop our awareness, we're like, oh, there's things that I'm not even aware I'm I'm experiencing, and there's patterns that I wasn't even aware are happening, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
The second is connection. The second pillar is connection. So in most places, you kind of like most psychedelic organizations, you come in, you shake hands with a group of people, 2 hours later, you're tripping together, right? And and the psychedelic experience is primarily determined by how safe you feel, right? And there's only a limited amount of safety that you can possibly feel in a new environment, new facilitators, new group of people, new medicine for most people, right? Everything's so new. And so we use tools from authentic relating, primarily a tool called circling, which is a really powerful group meditation modality, right? Um, that that really embodies curiosity and compassion, and use that to develop connection between each other. Within about 4 hours of being in space together, the group shares that they feel closer with each other in that space than they do with family, than they
Wow.
do with their best friends. And they've often shared more together in just 4 hours without the psychedelic that um, that they haven't even shared with people they've known for decades.
Wow.
And so just imagine the level of safety you could feel if, the analog I give is like, imagine doing a meditation retreat with your best friends and then doing a ceremony, right? what you could experience with your best friends in that very still space is likely to be so much deeper and safer than if you just came in with a group of strangers, right?
Yeah, I get that. We kind of build the community a little bit.
Yeah. Um, and then third pillar is self-empowerment. So we use the most advanced tools from neuroscience um, to psychospirituality that help people meet themselves where they're at, right? And to that end, it's like I think about this as skills and capacity. We practice skills, so we build capacity, right? These skills are tools from psychotherapy, from Buddhist psychology, from other spiritual practices. And as we practice these skills, we build the capacity to hold more and more challenging experience, right? A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people say that one of their biggest fears is to have a quote unquote bad trip, right? Um, a bad trip happens when the content that is arising in the psychedelic experience is beyond the capacity for us to hold it, right?
Okay.
Because a
Yeah.
bad trip is happening when I'm fight, flight, or freezing from the psychedelic experience.
Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Does
So the
that happen
final,
very often with people?
I'm going to give you a two-pronged answer.
Okay.
One is it's a spectrum, right? Like, um, there are challenging experiences and there are experiences that um, people completely reject and try to call an Uber to get home, right?
Okay.
We have very few of the latter out of the 400 plus, no, how many, maybe 600 plus experiences that we've facilitated.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we've probably had, I don't know, 3 of those, something like that, something very, very small number. Okay.
3 where the person just like wants to like go home or something.
Yeah. My
Yeah.
mom being one of them, by the way.
Oh wow. I forgot to ask you how that
That's a
I
whole
forgot to
nother
ask you.
story.
Yeah, I forgot to ask you how that went with your mom.
uh, yeah, that's a whole nother story. Do you want to get into that?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
very
Tell us
interesting.
about that a little bit.
Okay. Um, so my mom had a very first of all, I love you, mom, and I hope you don't mind me sharing this. Um,
Thank you.
my mom had a very traumatic upbringing, with the Chinese Cultural Revolution. A lot of people out of China don't know that the Cultural Revolution was the greatest amount of deaths in the history of humanity, up to 30 million people that
Oh
died
my
in like a short span of time, right? Mostly from starvation. And so, um, her experience, she started just seeing really hard things. I won't go into detail, and it's partially for her privacy. The next day, she wanted to leave, and it was encircling in the group container that people expressed, you know, it's your life if you want to leave, but we really want you here. I really want you here, right? And I shared with her with tears in my eyes, like, um, Mom, I wish you could know what I know, and I really want you here. I literally bought her a plane ticket, and the plane ticket confirmation didn't arrive. And so she thought I was manipulating her, quote unquote, again, to stay, right? And lying to her, etc. Finally, when the SMS, the text message came from the airline saying, okay, you're about to board your plane, she realized I had been telling the truth all along. And that's when everything clicked for her that with me and with the masculine, she's had a distrust all her life. And
hmm
that led to this reconciliation with us and then with the group. And by the third ceremony, my mother is very, very Christian, right?
hmm
Um, and my co-facilitator in that retreat, incredible human being, one of the top psychologists in the world, who was also a Catholic priest for 20 years and a Zen
Oh,
monk before as well after that. So really badass like
yeah.
facilitator, right? And she whispered to him, um, Jesus is here in the ceremony. Like, and then she sang in ceremony. She's an opera singer. Um, and it was one of the most profound moments of my life. For me personally, I learned the importance of non-attachment, right? my mom is one of two people I care for most in my life, my mom and my wife. And I had to be okay with my mom going home traumatized
Mm,
because my pattern before my own self work and before facilitating would be to have tried to change her, right?
mhm.
To try to change the situation. And I imagine for so many people, and for me too, the relationship they have with their parents is really wanting to change them for their betterment, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful story. So she ended up having a beautiful kind of transformational weekend or ceremony, and you and her had this kind of big healing and deeper level of connection.
Yeah.
Does she plan to come back? And do you have many other like parent, child people that come through?
um, I don't know if she is planning on coming back, right? And and that's okay with me. Um, because I already see the impact that these plant sacraments have had on her. She had clinical depression for more than 20 years and was taking pills for that much time. After her work with plant sacraments, she has not taken a pill ever again, a psychiatric pill,
That's
right?
amazing.
Yeah, I mean, amazing. And I'm
Yeah.
so grateful to this sacrament for that opening. And, you know, I can't give numbers because that would put us in a awkward position, but I can share that um, quite a significant amount of people that come on psychiatric medications, and I think I can say to you that the vast majority of people that come on a psychiatric medication don't take it again.
Wow.
Yeah.
After one ceremony, one experience.
Yeah, one of our retreats,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and that's
One
this is
retreat.
not like a magic bullet. It requires a lot of work. In fact,
Yeah.
we share with people when you come here, you're doing the hardest work you'll ever do in your life,
Wow.
right? And
Yeah.
that's because everything that we've suppressed, we're meeting it, and we're meeting it with our own love and our own power.
Hmm.
Someone out there and this something out there is not healing you. You're doing it for yourself. And that's like part of that is the process.
Amazing. So our audience and our kind of community of listeners, we have a lot of veterans in our community, and a lot of our guests on the podcast are veterans who have had psychedelic medicinal experiences. Do you guys get many veterans through your church?
Absolutely. And by the way, I love serving the veteran community. The the gentleman who does our medical intakes, the doctor who does our medical intakes, he's a veteran himself and works a lot with the veteran community. Um, if you don't mind, I'd love to share two stories.
Yeah, I'd love to, please.
The first is I can't name names, but a gentleman, one of our oldest participants, I think he was 76, and had ran the um, two psychiatric hospitals for the U.S. Army, and I don't want to give too much details, but um, professor, etc., right,
Mhm.
of psychiatry, a major figure, and had been in the U.S. Army for 40 years. And so imagine what he has seen as the lead psychiatrist for the Army for 40 years. I
Wow.
mean, the
Yeah.
amount of
It's
all
amazing.
the wars, all the suicides, all the young men that have come through. And it was his first time using a psychedelic. And in that space, I'm trying to just think about what I can share. Suffice you to say, um, he shared with me that it was the most profound experience he's ever had in his life.
Wow.
And there was a wave, in his words, a tidal wave of emotion from all the young men that he had um, supported, and many of whom passed away, right? Um, and so I just, even this moment, I feel tears like even talking about and revisiting that memory of how beautiful that experience was for him.
Hmm.
And the second story I'll share with you is someone who came to us with complex PTSD, a veteran with complex PTSD, that after a hug, could be so debilitated that he couldn't walk to the bathroom by himself, right? So a very significant amount of trauma that was living in his system. And within the course of our retreat, by the end, um, he was dancing, he was looking in people's eyes, and he was saying how he was thinking about getting on stage and sharing this thing. I mean, this is a man who was so private and so close, could not hold eye contact, like was
Wow.
deathly afraid of moving his of dancing. You know, I think the last time he danced was at his wedding, you know, and and now just like being vibrant. And went home, had challenges too, but continued to do the work, you know,
Mhm.
and I check in with him every now and then. I just so happy with not only the impact for him, his wife came 3 months later, and then the impact on his whole family, his I think 2 or 3 lovely kids.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing those stories, and I hope that more people will continue to find healing and transformation at your church at Ceremonia.
Thank
So
you.
speaking of our veteran community, part of the show is we like to do a hypothetical survival scenario. So I just wanted to check with you. Are you down? Do you feel up to a scenario?
Definitely.
Amazing. Okay. So I have
I'm filled with
one.
curiosity, by the way.
That's beautiful, man. Curiosity is a big theme of the episode, it seems. So, this is a hypothetical survival scenario tailored specifically for your area of expertise, the sort of psychedelic field. And this is actually the same one that I ran through with someone who I believe is a friend of yours on a different episode of the podcast with Paul Austin.
Yes, he likes to be called Paul F. Austin.
Paul F. Austin, thank you for correcting me. So we will see. He survived the podcast, and now we will see if you can do the same, my friend.
Okay.
All right, here we go. So, for this hypothetical survival scenario, you are about to embark on a profound psychedelic journey with the guidance of a skilled facilitator. So, you're a participant this time, you're not a facilitator. This journey aims to explore the depths of your mind and consciousness. Before the journey, you are advised to follow a specific diet to enhance the experience. Do you A, stick to a plant based diet for a few days or more before the journey, or B, restrict your meat intake to once a day in the days leading up to the journey?
I'm going to say B because I'm a big supporter of meat.
Really? Okay. Now, I
Mhm.
have heard some people say that before a psychedelic experience, you should cut meat out. Is there any truth to that, or what do you think about that?
You know, there's a lot of opinions. Um, for something like this, I lean on the research, right? Many of the opinions come from shamanic traditions, etc. And
Mhm.
so I am somewhat different in this regard, in that I hold a shamanic ceremony, but I also lean on research for our workshops and our curriculum, etc. And I'm also really into biohacking, and there's a lot of research that shows how beneficial meats and the research that I have read, and this is because there's lots of so much information on the internet,
Yeah.
that eating meats, including and especially red meat and seafood, is very beneficial for the body.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But I
Well,
will say it's extremely important to eat healthy, right?
yeah.
And sometimes by going a strictly plant-based diet, for many people, it's so restrictive and so different from their current diet that it's like a very like forced way to eat healthy, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I like that answer. I like that. I had A, but you know what? I'm gonna give you correct on B because you explained it and that makes sense to me. I'll have to have you back on. We'll do another podcast about diet. I didn't know you had a lot of we'll have to do a whole biohacking and diet episode at another
Oh,
time.
totally. I'll send you our 13-page biohacking document we sent to our alumni.
Oh, please do. I love to check that out. Okay. So you went with B, and we're gonna give it to you since I like your answer. So that's how this game works. Uh Next question. You're still in the preparation phase. Do you A, avoid watching any movies or engage with social media for at least a few days before the journey? Or B, engage with films and content that are thought provoking in order to come up with ideas of what to work on during your journey?
I would say for most people, A is is the best way.
Mhm.
For me personally, I would say B.
Okay, why would you say B?
Um, because I've had, I think, enough psychedelic experiences that my experiences um, are less about, you could say, quote unquote, healing, right?
Mhm.
And more about um, spiritual exploration, you could say,
Sure.
or metaphysical exploration.
Cool. Yeah, I get
Bit of
that.
a weird answer. And
No, I
so
get that.
thought provoking things and nature documentaries. That's what I would watch.
I get that. So, you know what? I'm going to give it to you. I had A, but again, I like your answer because so for the listeners, if you're inexperienced, you probably want to go A. But for someone who's experienced, I get what you're saying. You can go B, and because you want to be kind of thinking about these philosophical questions about consciousness and spirituality and kind of meditation and things like that. So
Yeah.
I like that. Okay, B, we're gonna give it to you again. You're on a roll here. I had different answers, but again, we're gonna give it to you because I like your explanation, and that's how the show works.
Yeah.
So let's see here. Uh, in order to strengthen your body and nervous system before the journey, do you A, integrate daily meditation and breathwork sessions into your routine, or B, increase your weightlifting and cardio so you have a strong body for the journey?
Definitely A.
A.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I had A as well. And I'm guessing we were talking about this during the episode. That's kind of increasing your mindfulness, et cetera. That's the
Hmm.
idea behind that, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. Moving right along. You integrate your meditation and your breath work. Moving forward, you are now in the plant medicine ceremony. As the psychedelic experience intensifies, you start to feel a bit overwhelmed. Do you A, reach out to your facilitator for guidance on managing the overwhelming feelings, or B, embrace the intensity, allowing the experience to unfold?
I'm gonna say B with a caveat. And the
Okay.
caveat is that most people struggle with asking for help. And so we
Mhm.
share in advance if you're the kind of person who struggles for asking for help and tries to muscle through something, maybe the medicine for you is to ask for help, but only you know at that moment. No one can tell you.
Well said. Well
Yeah.
said. Okay, cool. And so for you, you are going with B, but with a
B. Yeah.
caveat. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you embrace the intensity and you allow the experience to unfold naturally. The visuals become vivid and you find yourself in a surreal landscape. Do you A, close your eyes and focus on internal sensations, or B, explore the landscape, interacting with the visuals?
A.
Okay, why are you going with A?
Um, my teachers said the flashing lights can be a distraction. You know, like um, my philosophy. I'm really prefacing this by saying it's my belief is
Mhm.
that what we see in the psychedelic experience is really the mind trying to bring form into something formless, right? Trying to make sense of something that we're feeling and experiencing, right? And this experience is noetic, ineffable, can't be described. And so if you see visuals and if you see lights and if you see a surreal landscape, um, it's my belief that this is the mind trying to make make sense of something that you're actually feeling. So
Mm.
going into the feeling of it, deeper and deeper into that inner sensation is what opens up more and more dimensions of beingness in there.
Oh, beautiful. Okay. Again, I had the other answer, but I'm giving you correct on this one because I think that was very well said. and just continuing to go internally will take you to more places of more depth of healing and expansion. So I like that. So I'm going to give it to you.
Probably
uh,
different answers from Paul F. Austin.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so suddenly the atmosphere becomes challenging and you feel a sense of fear. Do you A, confront the fear, exploring its origin, or B, request support from your facilitator to navigate through the challenging emotions?
Well, I already explained the caveat before, so I'll say A. And the
Great.
way to face the fear, I don't like the word confront. I like the word meet the fear,
Oh,
and to meet it with curiosity and compassion, right? Curiosity is, I think, one of the best intentions anybody can go into a psychedelic experience with, because curiosity is like, oh, that's happening. Why? Why is this happening for me? Why is this happening through me? Well, what is this here to teach me, right? And compassion, Thich Nhat Hanh, a well-known Buddhist teacher, shares a smiling meditation, and he says, um, close your eyes and smile at your thoughts, smile at your feelings, smile at your senses, smile at your smile. It's one of the meditations we do in our retreat. And the practice of that, like when you smile at something that you're feeling, let's say you're feeling fear and you smile at it. Wow, it's so much easier to be with that fear when it's like, oh, hello, fear, my old friend. Right?
amazing. Amazing. Really, really well said. I'm really enjoying your explanations on these answers. So thank you for elaborating on that. So you decide to confront the fear, exploring its source within the psychedelic experience. You find the source of the fear and achieve a state of inner peace and bliss. After the
Nice.
psychedelic journey, your coach emphasizes the importance of integration. Do you A, journal about the experience to gain insights and reflections, or B, choose not to dwell on the experience, assuming it will naturally integrate over time?
I I'm a very big proponent of A.
A, yeah, journaling.
Yeah.
Journaling is the way to go.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I had A. I think it's pretty self explanatory. So you opt to journal about the experience, gaining valuable insights and reflections. As you gain insight, you feel the overwhelming urge to call your former employer and tell them how you really feel. Do you A, call them and tell them what's on your mind, or B, wait at least a couple days before making any heavy phone calls?
Definitely B. Yeah. We actually ask people for their phones before their ceremonies.
No phone calls during this.
No phone calls during the ceremony.
Yeah.
No life-altering decisions made right away.
Yeah. Do
Yeah.
you ever recommend to people to even give it a few days if they're feeling like making a huge change even after the retreat is over to wait maybe a couple days and kind of feel into that?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Let things settle first, and
Hmm.
the insights keep coming. There's a neuroplastic window of 2 weeks after you consume psilocybin, and which means that in those 2 weeks, your mind is very malleable, right? And um, in that span of time, you're still going to experience so much. One thing that happens is that our awareness is amplified, right? And so we'll go back to life. We feel we've changed, but the world hasn't. And everything that we've set up in our life was a was from our old self in our old patterns, designed for us to suffer so that we can say, I've had enough, and go towards the path of awakening, right? And that's not just the case with plant medicine, that's the case with any kind of awakening modality. You you don't you don't say like, my life is great and I'm going to start doing hard inner work. No,
Right.
most people are like, man, this sucks. I'm going through a divorce. My job sucks. I'm whatever it is, right? I don't want to suffer anymore.
Hmm.
And so where the big aha usually comes at a spiritual level is people realize it was all one big setup that that I had
Interesting.
for
Yeah.
myself, right? I created for myself to feel this way, which is a feeling of peace and gratitude and joyfulness and God.
Amazing. Man, you got some good answers on the scenario. I got one more final question for you.
Okay.
So you wait a few days and sit with your feelings before making any heavy calls. Once you have sat with your feelings after the experience, do you A, integrate the lessons learned into your habits and behaviors, or B, keep the psychedelic experience separate from your daily life?
I mean, definitely integrate the
Yeah.
experience
Yeah.
because this is all meaningless unless you're making an impact in who you are, how you move through the world, your relationships, your your energy, your health and vitality. What's the point if you just do a trip to the cosmos, right?
Yeah. What's the point if you don't kind of bring something back with you to try to build a more beautiful life or a better life, right?
And that's where the real work is. That's where actually the hardest work is.
Very well said, my friend. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast. You've survived this podcast. Your answers were very excellent.
Yay.
Before we sign off, where can people find you? What do you want people to know?
You can see our website at ceremoniacircle.org. That's ceremonia with an IA, circle.org. And we're also on Instagram, Ceremonia Circle. My Instagram is at Austin Mao. We have this really great Foundations of Psychedelic Healing course, online course that's for free. You can sign up and you can join our podcast. We have a podcast called Modern Enlightenment,
Cool.
where we talk about the intersection of science and spirituality. And we have lots of the luminaries like Rick Doblin on our, founder of MAPS on our podcast. And
Amazing.
yeah, and if you have any questions at all, feel free to contact us. We've got bevy of information. Whether or not you join us, we are at your service to help you discover if psychedelic healing is right for you. And if you have questions about whatever you might have questions about, like we're at your service.
Beautiful. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks, Jeff.
Bye.